Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz. Ben Ferguson with you as well. Senator, we've got a lot to talk about, especially what's going on in the Middle East right now. And then we've got some issues at home with the Supreme Court.
Well, Iran continues to screw around to believe that Donald Trump is bluffing. And if there's one thing that has been made absolutely clear, it's that President Trump is not bluffing. In the Strait of Hormuz, Iran tried to have a tanker run the Strait of Hormuz. That did not work well, and it resulted in a big hole being blown in that tanker. We're going to break down exactly what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz and all the pressure that President Trump is putting on Iran to end the threat that they pose to the United States of America. We're also going to talk about Qatar, which has been the number one foreign funder of U.S. universities for many, many years, and they realize they got a problem. People don't like the home to Hamas, the funder to anti-American sentiments, to tearing down our nation, being a foreign nation. So they just hired two big Washington lobby firms to try to cover up their PR. We're going to break that down as well. We're going to tell you all about that.
I want to also take a moment and talk to you real quick about what's going on with your IRA. And did you know that now there have been things that have changed and you can now invest in cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin IRA can help you do exactly that. I got to ask you a question. Can you buy real Bitcoin in your retirement account? Well, if not, it's time to upgrade to Bitcoin IRA. It's 2026 and cryptocurrency is where so many investors are going and diversifying. You can buy and sell Bitcoin inside a tax-advantaged IRA with Bitcoin IRA. And that gives you more ways to diversify and grow your retirement savings. Security is their number one priority, and your assets are protected by military-grade multi-key security. And you're covered up to $250 million in digital asset insurance. So, what are you waiting for? Get in the Bitcoin game today and diversify your portfolio. You'll actually talk to a real person. 866-679-6871. 866-679-7871 or BitcoinIRA.com/Ben. That's BitcoinIRA.com/Ben to open a free account and earn up to $1,000 bonus right now. All right, so where do you want to start with what's going on with Iran, the Strait of Hormuz? There's two different issues here. One, the Strait was open, Senator. Then Iran was like, all right, maybe not. We're not going to do that deal. Now we're going to run boats through the Strait of Hormuz. They got a 6-hour warning to not do it with the same boat over and over again saying, you need to turn around, you need to turn around. And then finally we just blew a hole in the middle of it and said, all right, well, now what are you going to do? And we have now taken, from the president's words, we have taken that ship.
Well, here's what President Trump put out on Truth Social. Today, an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 foot long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen. So our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in their engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship and are seeing what's on board. That is clear and unequivocal, and it'll be interesting to see tomorrow if the Iranians try to run the blockade again. I predict if they try to run the blockade again, the same thing will result. And at the end of the day, if you're a tanker full of oil, you're not going to do very well against the United States Navy.
Yeah, what was also interesting about this attack on this ship, and this is the part that where I laugh, because online they're like, oh, this is going to be Exxon Valdez, and I can't believe America's doing this. No. This was a very surgical strike. We knew what we were aiming for. We knew we were going to take the ship. We knew it was going to be dead in the water. This was flawlessly done and well planned out beforehand. And so for all those who are like, I can't believe America did this, like, you should be proud of this moment. And we also gave 6 hours of warning. We did radio calls. We had flares. We even had boats go in front of it. Like, we did everything that we could have done in a 6 hour time span, clearly on video, I love that this video has been put out because it's important that people see exactly. We did everything we could to make sure this ship turned around and stopped. It refused, and there are consequences for those actions.
Yes, that's right. And look, it's not an accident that we hit the engine room. We incapacitated the ship, made it unable to move forward, and then boarded the ship and took over the ship. And you could fully anticipate if any other ships tried to run the blockade the same thing will result. At the same time, we have a second story that broke, which is the federal government has arrested an Iranian woman at LAX right before she was about to get on a flight to Turkey. Sharmeen Mafi is accused of brokering Iranian bombs, weapons, drones, and ammunition to Sudan. Mafi, who lives in LA, allegedly brokered, quote, millions of rounds of ammunitions for Iran. The feds say one of her contracts was worth 60 million euros, and it was to broker the sale of Iranian-made drones between Iran and Sudan. In another instance, Mafi and her co-conspirator allegedly sold 55,000 bomb fuses to the Sudanese military. That is a lot. And here's what President Trump put out concerning Iran. Look, we're cutting off their money. We're arresting people who are trafficking in arms. And President Trump put out on Truth Social, quote, "We're offering a very fair and reasonable deal. If they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. And then in all caps, no more Mr. Nice Guy." I got to say, pause for a second if you're an Iranian mullah. You read that and you got to think, Mr. Nice Guy, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, in 2 months, just about every single ballistic missile's been taken out. Just about every single factory manufacturing ballistic missiles has been taken out. All of their air defenses have been taken out. All of their drones have been taken out. All of their drone manufacturing capabilities have been taken out. Their Air Force has been taken out. Their Navy is sunk and sitting at the bottom of the ocean. The Ayatollah is dead. The entire senior military leadership is dead. And now they have a blockade where Iran can't take in or out any oil. And by the way, we're about a week away from Iran having to shut in wells. And if and when Iran shuts in wells, the consequences...
Explain what that means so people understand like how significant shutting in wells is.
Right. So they're producing oil. And when you're producing oil, you're pumping it out, you're loading it into tankers, and it's moving. Now, the problem is they don't have enough storage capacity. They're continuing to pump millions of barrels of oil, and they got to have a place to put it. And if they're not allowed to put it on tankers and take it out, they're running out of storage capacity. So their only choice then is to shut it down, is to cap off the well. Now, the problem is once you do that, what happens is water comes into the formation and reduces the pressure in the formation. And when you shut in a well, when you come back a week or a month or a year later and you try to get it producing again, typically it produces at a much lower rate. So Iran is risking doing permanent damage to its oil fields, which is a source of revenue. That is massive leverage. And the impact on Iran's oil production and economy is going to be profound. And I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into what the impact of this blockade is having. So Daniel Akal is an economist who tweeted the following out, quote, "Blocking the Strait of Hormuz with the support of Oman and other Gulf nations may have two objectives. One, block Iran's exports and inflow of hard currency. And two, make China force Iran to negotiate in realistic terms, being a strategic partner of Iran and the most impacted by any shutdown." Understand, cutting off the oil, it hurts Iran badly, but most of that oil was going to China. That hurts China too.
Yeah.
The reason to do it now and not before, this may be because 80% of the crude supply of the Strait of Hormuz has already been replaced or rerouted. So the impact on supply and demand for most OPEC partners and customers is as small as possible, with the highest negative impact for the Iran regime. Furthermore, OPEC has already agreed to lift quotas by exactly the amount that Iran exports, right about 2 million barrels per day. And let me do a little more deep dive in terms of what this means. And this is a thread from Miad Maleki, who's a senior fellow at FDD, which is a fantastic think tank on the Middle East. Here's what he put out, and this detail is really useful. The U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz would cost Iran approximately $276 million a day in lost exports and disrupt $149 million a day in imports, a combined economic damage of $435 million a day, or $13 billion a month.
Wow.
Over 90% of Iran's $109.7 billion in annual trade transits the Persian Gulf. Oil and gas account for 80% of government export earnings and 23.7% of GDP. Karg Island alone generates $53 billion a year. Or, as I noted at the time, $78 billion a year in energy revenue. Crude oil. Iran was exporting 1.5 million barrels a day, earning $139 million a day at wartime pricings, about $87 a barrel, though with minimal proceed repatriation due to banking sanctions. A blockade zeroes that out overnight. Karg Island, which handles 92% of the exports, sits deep inside the Gulf with no viable alternative. That's $139 million a day gone. How about petrochemicals? Iran exported $19.7 billion in petrochemicals in 9 months of 24 and 25, $54 million a day. Virtually all of it ships through Asalua, Imam Khomeini, and Shahid Raja'i. Sorry, my pronunciation is not great on that. All inside the blockade zone. No overland route can move these volumes. That's another $54 million a day gone. All right, how about non-oil exports?
Which is a lot, by the way.
Yeah. Iran's non-oil trade hit $51.7 billion in 2025. Yep. After subtracting petrochemicals, $88 million a day in goods, minerals, metals, etc., flow through Persian Gulf ports. Roughly 90% would be blocked. That's another $79 million a day in lost revenue. Over 90% of Iran's seaborne trade transits the Strait of Hormuz. Shahid Raja'i, Bandar Abbas alone handles 53% of all cargo operations. Imam Khomeini handles 58% of basic goods imports. Bushehr ports moved 57 million tons last year, all deep inside the Gulf. Alternatives? Iran's options outside the strait are negligible. JASC, the much-touted bypass, operates as a fraction of its 1 million barrels a day design capacity. Only 10 out of 20 storage tanks were built. Effective throughput, 70,000 barrels a day. Chabahar handles just 8.5 million tons a year. The 5 Caspian ports combined handle 11 million tons versus 220 million through the Gulf. How about on the import side? Iran imported 58 billion in goods in 2025, 159 million a day. A blockade chokes off industrial inputs, machinery, and consumer goods. Food inflation already hit 105% in February 2026. Rice prices are up 7x.
Yeah.
This gets dramatically worse under a blockade. Blockade will hopefully allow offloading of the humanitarian cargoes. Final couple of points. Extremely important topic is the storage clock. Iran has 50 to 55 million barrels of total onshore oil storage, roughly 60% full. Spare capacity, about 20 million barrels. With 1.5 million barrels a day of surplus production that normally exports, storage fills in 13 days, and that was from the start of the blockade. After that, Iran must shut in wells. This is what we were talking about just a minute ago. Why is this very important? When mature oil wells shut down, bottom water rushes in, a process called water coning. Oil droplets get permanently trapped in rock pores. This oil can never be recovered. Iran's fields already decline 5 to 8% annually. Forced shut-ins could permanently destroy 300,000 to 500,000 barrels a day of production capacity. That's $9 billion to $15 billion a year in revenue, gone forever.
And to be clear, you can't get it back. I think people need to understand, the point you're saying there. It's not like you can go, okay, we'll go over here and then drill, and then we'll go get what we lost earlier in capacity. Like you said, once you shut them in, that capacity never comes back.
Yeah, you can reopen it. It'll produce some, but it will produce at a much lower rate. All right,
Correct.
What happens to currency? Currency collapse accelerant. The real has already cratered from 42,000 to what do you think it is now? It was 42,000 to the dollar.
Yeah.
It's now 1.5 million to the dollar.
Wow.
Banks are limiting withdrawals to $18 to $30 a day. Overall inflation right now, 47.
Hold on. Just put the family of four, $18 to $30 a day is the max you can get out of the bank right now.
Yep. Overall
That's not
inflation, 47.5%. A blockade eliminating all Forex earnings pushes the real into terminal hyperinflation. The regime issued its largest ever banknote, 10 million reals. What do you think that's worth?
I have no idea. What is that now?
About $7. 10 million reals, $7. The bottom line is this. A naval blockade imposes $435 million a day in combined economic damage. Storage fills in 13 days, forcing well shut-ins that cause permanent reservoir damage. The real enters terminal collapse. Iran's alternatives outside the strait can replace less than 10% of the Gulf through point. The blockade makes continued resistance economically impossible. That is the leverage President Trump is applying right now.
Every day, Americans make choices that shape our country's future, right down to which cell phone provider we support. Here's what most people don't actually realize. Patriot Mobile isn't just a wireless provider. They're an activist organization funded by selling top-tier cell service. They've been on the front lines defending our freedoms long before it was cool, standing up in the gap when others wouldn't. The best part is they deliver prioritized, premium service on all three major U.S. networks, giving you the same or even better coverage, backed by 100% U.S.-based customer support. You get unlimited data, mobile hotspots, international roaming, and so much more. But when you switch to Patriot Mobile, that's what I love the most. You'll help grow a movement that fuels the Christian conservative cause. Every bill you pay helps advance the values of faith, family, and freedom. And switching is easier than ever. You can literally activate in minutes, keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. So take a stand today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Ferguson. That's patriotmobile.com/Ferguson. Or call them 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. And use the promo code Ferguson for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Ferguson or 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. Let's talk about the timeline here. We're talking about not months of survival economically. We're talking about catastrophic blows to their economy center each and every day, and certainly each week that goes by. And when you say that's the leverage, that's not hyperbole. On the ground there, when you're limiting people taking out under $30 a day, that's how bad it is. They're forcing people to make those types of decisions because otherwise the entire economy will collapse instantly.
That's right. And the pressure on the regime. And remember, the Chinese are pressuring them, too, because the Chinese want the oil. And by cutting off the oil, the Chinese are facing a real problem as well. And I think President Trump is just gradually ratcheting up the pressure more and more and more. It's probably why they decided to risk trying to run the blockade, because they desperately needed to move that oil. And it turned out that is not an option they have in front of them.
Well, final question on this, and obviously we're going to have a lot more, but Democrats have been using, and I had dealt with this on TV the other day, the word they keep trying to use is this is Trump's quagmire. If this is the definition of quagmire, count me in for the rest of my life. I want to be a guy that does quagmires because this has been incredibly successful so far. But they're saying that clearly trying to sway political opinion of the president, that this is somehow a disaster. These guys into a never-ending war. This is Iraq, Afghanistan 2.0. That is not the case here, but they're using it also for the midterms. I truly believe we're on the cusp of something happening significant in a positive way for the U.S. because of all this, just from what you laid out, which is why I would tell people, take this show, share it wherever you can, because when you do hear how close the Iranian economy is to like total collapse and disaster, you realize just how close and also how smart the president is to keep doubling down on the pressure because you're just getting them even closer and closer to the brink. This is in no way a quagmire. This is a success on economic pressure, oil pressure, military pressure. The list goes on and on.
Look, in the Iraq war, we had boots on the ground, hundreds of thousands of boots on the ground for multiple years. In Iran, we have 0 boots on the ground. That's a hell of a difference.
Yeah.
This is not remotely Iraq. The Democrats know that. Listen, the Democrats started the day President Trump began this military assault. The Democrats began attacking, not Iran, attacking him. It used to be that politics ends at the water's edge. I got to say, we did a classified briefing with all the top national security officials of the admin just in the first few days of this military conflict. And it was disgraceful. Democrat senator after Democrat senator stood up and just attacked. They were totally opposed. The only Democrat senator who's not is John Fetterman. John has shown a lot of courage standing up and saying, of course this makes us safer. It does. And in terms of what's happening already, we have seen a massive military success. Is there even one Democrat other than Fetterman who will acknowledge the massive military success? That the military goals President Trump laid out have been virtually 100% accomplished. That is an unprecedented military victory. And then the major goals of getting Iran to permanently stop enrichment, to hand over their enriched uranium, to stop funding terrorism, and ultimately to cause this regime to collapse and get out of power Islamists who are killing Americans. All of that is massively important in terms of making America much safer.
Love, generosity, and compassion. We say those words all the time, and they sound good. They feel good. But here's the truth. Those words don't mean anything unless they turn into action. And right now, not later today, not tomorrow, there's a child in the world who doesn't know if they'll eat, if they'll have a chance to learn, or if there's any hope at all. And while we're all busy, life keeps moving forward, but that child is waiting. This is where you come in. With Compassion International, you have the chance to change a child's future. Not just with words, not with promises, but with real help that provides food, education, and hope through local churches and people already in their community. Put your words into action and join me. Introduce a child to a loving Heavenly Father today at compassion.com. That's compassion.com. I want to move to Qatar real quick, and that is another big story here. Qatar is a country that's very interesting how they spend their money. They certainly do it to influence our opinion of them as a nation. That is something that's very important to them, and they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on our universities trying to gain favor, to have people think of them in a positive light. Qatar is now hiring PR firms, big ones in D.C., to help cover and to whitewash them right now with their support of terrorist activities in the Middle East. Let's just expose that for everybody right now so you understand. And plus, Qatar's been interesting because it also deals with our friend, a guy by the name of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, look, Qatar is the number one foreign funder of U.S. universities. And to give
more
you
than China, by the way, which is something that is a point that a massive asterisk, because China has also tried to buy a significant amount of influence in the U.S. and our universities as well. And think about the size of China and compare it to Qatar. And that tells you just how important Qatar believes getting the minds of our kids and our colleges to look at them in some way, a positive way.
Let's give you a sense of the scope. The number one foreign donor to U.S. universities is Qatar. Between 1986 and 2005, what do you think they've given?
God, I want to say billions. Is that too much?
7.7 billion with a
There
B.
you go. Yeah.
You know how much they gave in 2025?
How much?
Over 1 billion.
Yeah.
They are flooding cash. Number 2 is China. Where do you think China is?
I'm going to guess a little bit below them, but definitely close to $1 billion.
Well, in terms of the overall
In 25.
window, I'll give you the 25 numbers in a second. In terms of the window 86 to present, the total is 6.4 billion.
There you go.
The next ones are Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Canada. Now, what about this last year? The most recent disclosures from 2025 identify Qatar over 1.1 billion, the United Kingdom over 633 million, China over 528 million, Switzerland over 451 million, Japan over 374 million, Germany over 292 million, and Saudi Arabia over 285 million. The top university recipients of those foreign funds in 2025 are Carnegie Mellon, almost $1 billion, MIT, almost $1 billion, Stanford, over 775 million, and Harvard University, over 324 million. And if you look at the entire window from 1986 to the end of 2025, Harvard University has disclosed that it has received more money from counterparties located in countries of concern, which are countries that are enemies of America, than any other institution of higher education, totaling over $610 million. And Harvard is followed by MIT, $490 million, NYU, $462 million, Stanford, $418 million, and Yale University, over $400 million. By the way,
Translation, our universities are for sale to the people that hate America the most.
They are, and the list of those universities that receive the most money from the countries that hate us are almost exactly the list of the universities that had the worst anti-Semitic protest. I mean, Qatar knows what it's getting. $7.7 billion ain't cheap. And, you know, what is fascinating on this also is you look at all the countries that invest real money, and if you look at that, the number one is Qatar, who, among other things, funds Hamas. Do you know what country is not on the top 70 countries?
What is that?
Israel.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, for all the knuckleheads online, or it's like, oh, Israel runs everything, Israel's paying for everything, Israel's the money bags.
They're buying influence, yeah.
It actually is really funny. If you look at the list of countries, I'm just going to read it in descending order because I'm going to show you all the countries that put more money in U.S. universities than Israel does. Qatar, England, China, Saudi Arabia, Bermuda, Canada, Hong Kong, Japan, Switzerland, India, Germany, the United Arab Emirates, France, Singapore, Australia, Kuwait, Denmark, the Netherlands, Brazil, Sweden, South Korea, Spain, Norway, Thailand. There is Israel. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Israel falls right below Thailand and below even Bermuda.
There you go.
That's where they fall. And I separately jumped online on AI to ask, just where does Israel rank as a foreign funder of U.S. universities? And the answer from Google AI, Israel is not a top-tier foreign funder of U.S. universities by volume. While Middle Eastern nations like Qatar and Saudi Arabia have donated billions, Israel's contributed significantly less, with estimates of roughly $300 million in donations over the past 25 years, often focused on specific research or academic partnerships. And so it's just worth underscoring, because if you live in the twisted world of Twitter, and Twitter comments, you think Israel's paying for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. You would think they'd be 10x Qatar or any other country.
So there's a reason Qatar has hired these two Washington PR firms. So one of the firms, it's the Qatar Foundation, a state-run nonprofit that Doha uses to peddle influence in American higher education, hired the Washington Media Group at a rate of $40,000 per month. So good business to be a lobbyist, to provide, quote, strategic communication support that enhance public understanding of its long-standing academic partnerships with U.S. universities located in Education City, Qatar, according to the firm's March 30th federal disclosure registering it as a foreign agent. The Washington Media Group describes itself as, quote, a female and minority-owned company that crafts solutions to high-profile crises and protects and repairs reputations. Its CEO and president and the agent listed on the contract with the Qatar Foundation is a woman named Crystal Patterson, who has a long history of running digital strategy and communication for Democrats, such as Hillary Clinton, Ted Kennedy, and former Rep. Tim Ryan. She worked for the left-wing Center for American Progress, focusing on, quote, immigration and diversity policy, according to her bio. Yeah. In other words, immigration let in more anti-American Islamists who hate America, so then they can destroy America, like, sadly, they're destroying many of the countries of Europe. She also is a graduate of Northwestern University, which boasts a campus in Doha, in Qatar, that holds a contract with Qatar forbidding its students and faculty from criticizing the Qatari regime. Let me repeat that. Northwestern has a campus in Qatar that holds a contract with Qatar forbidding its students and faculties from criticizing the Qatari regime.
It makes sense. That's money well spent right there.
Look, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. The Qatar Foundation also retained the law firm Venable at a monthly rate of $25,000 for government relations services, quote, pertaining to the public profile of the foundation. Amazing. Venable will, quote, help ensure that members of Congress and the administration have an accurate understanding of Qatar Foundation's support for education and its work with U.S. universities. You know what? The fact that they're freaking out and hiring lobbyists is a good thing because people are on to them. By the way, these are the same guys that host the leadership of Hamas in Qatar. They live like billionaires. They live like kings. They fund Al Jazeera. They're spreading Islamist propaganda. They're supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. They're spreading anti-American garbage. They're spreading anti-Semitic garbage. They're funding these violent radicals on campuses, these communists on campus. By the way, and I will say, you know what Qatar also funded?
What's that?
Spies spying on me. It's been publicly reported. They hired spies.
They wanted to know what you were doing, sir.
Yeah, I got to say my life's pretty boring. So, you know, if you want to see me sitting at home at what time is it? Midnight?
Yeah, it's 1 in the morning, sir. 1 in the morning. Let's
one
be
in
clear.
the morning.
They could have hired me for $50,000. I would have told them what you were doing at 1 in the morning, doing vertical Ted Cruz. Yeah,
no, it's really exciting. There is, Heidi and the girls are sound asleep, and I'm in the room, sadly, not too far from the cat litter for our cats that Caroline adores. So their spies, I think, are pretty bored right now.
Yeah, $50,000 a month. I'm just saying. Unbelievable. We're going to keep you updated on everything that's going on in Iran. We'll keep you updated, obviously, as we expose more on Qatar and this money that's coming in. Don't forget, we do the show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hit that subscribe or auto download button. And if you'd rather watch the show, most episodes we do on YouTube or on Facebook, so you can watch them there as well. And the Center Round will see you back here on Wednesday morning.